Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We are here on an unusual day, a most unusual day. Not often you see the BNB Show on a Tuesday, but so it is. I am Brendan. That is Brandon. And I got good news, guys. The team is on a 3-game winning streak. So right now we're in a pretty good place. And I know that I'm doing better because of it. How about you, Brandon? Are you doing better with this 3-game win streak?
We can't help but to be a little bit on the old cloud nine of things, to where you feel like is the best of results that we could have asked for through these first 4 games. I think, to be a realist, this was about as good as you could ask for as an end result, and to have it to be where it's the 3 wins on the back end of that you're building up the momentum. Feels like we're actually building towards something rather than just being a team last year also that was 3-1, but after that loss at 3-1, you felt like you were just about to go backwards a bit. Like you could feel it off that Lions game, and it's a bit of the opposite this year.
Now, the Giants game was a wake-up call after that, so we got to avoid that this year, because the Giants game was the 5th game. That was when you were like, wait a minute, what do we got here? So
yeah,
we cannot have a Giants game this week.
No, absolutely no Giants game, and I think luckily with Tampa being as good as they are, that they'll probably take them fully seriously walking in, which I'm not sure if you did that with the Giants last year exactly.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could have beaten the Niners in week 1 if we had stolen their signals. I guess that's the thing with the Niners. I guess.
I guess that's what you got to go do. Piss off Robert Saleh. That's the way to go. And then he threatens to media.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a fair fight, right? Like if Robert Saleh and Liam Cohn got into it, I'd make Robert Saleh like a minus 750 favorite.
Yeah, you're definitely like Liam's only chance is a haymaker coming from left field. Like that's the only way he's getting that fight ball. He's got to land a blow before Saleh gets into him, grapples him, because Saleh's just going to ground and pound him.
Yeah.
So he's got to get one of those just perfect punches in before he can get the grip in on him.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be right. At least when Jim Schwartz went at Jim Harbaugh, you felt like Schwartz would have a little bit of a chance. Right? You'd make Harbaugh like a minus 325, maybe.
Both of them were pretty equally intense. They both had that like typical coach fire in your belly kind of I'm mad at everything just a little bit slightly all the time. So yeah, I certainly could see that being one where Liam, and funny enough, when you take him down as he goes down, he actually yells this when you take him down.
Duval.
So you shoot, he goes Duval. That's how it goes every time.
It's very off-putting. I can understand maybe getting distracted by it.
Yes.
All right. Well, the good news is we know how to beat the Niners in week 18. It's actually pretty simple, as it turns out.
Start looking at those signs, man. Get out ahead of it.
All right. But so back to more serious issues, although I guess beating the Niners is pretty serious. This Cardinals game that happened about 8 years ago, I think we both turned it over a lot on our respective channels. There was plenty of interesting stuff to say about it, for sure. It was a typical Thursday night football game, right? That is kind of what you've come to expect when you have football games on Thursday night. Just real quick, I do want to ask, what were your big takeaways from that game? What are you taking with you after that one?
I think it's you really, as much to me, start with Sam on it, coming away and going, look, Sam is that guy. And where he goes as far as sustaining this level of performance, if he can, if he can't, I don't think he's falling flat on his face now as we move through the rest of the schedule, that this was all just some weird outlier that just happened. And now he'll return back to earth. He went out there and he played a really coldly efficient game, as he has throughout this year so far. He's not being given attempt after attempt after attempt to flash and flourish, but yet for what he's being given to do, he's executing. And it's not made to, all of the narratives that you throw up on Sam, have to have the great play calling, have to have the offensive line in place, got to have at least a running game to keep him honest. Doesn't do well when the chips are down and he's got to come up with a drive when everything counts. These are the things that were thrown at me. If you got him in a 2-minute and he's got to drive, he's not, it's not going to be as much of who he is. You got to be up ahead on that. You got to be in the fourth quarter up ahead. And that's the only way you're going to do it. So disproving a lot of these kind of, to me, tired narratives that still surround Sam Darnold a little bit. And again, I'm not trying to overstate this to the other side, where he's become now captain fantastic in this league and a top 5 quarterback or something, but just that, look, this guy can absolutely, if you put the right team around him, go and get you a Super Bowl. This version playing like this with the right team around him, that's good enough. And to me, you're going to have a hard sell to me to say you have to have more out of the position. You got to be getting even more from what we're getting out of this position if we ever hope to get to that top mountaintop. So that's the one that stands out as much as anything else. And then just, I think things that have kind of continued through even this winning streak where defense is playing outstanding football. They're doing a great job. They're keeping the points and limiting the points off the ball. They're finding turnovers. They're finding pressure without blitzing, Brendan. And then the offensive side of the ball, the receivers are doing a really good job. Arroyo, you got him into the mix, but offensive line still does remain a little bit shoddy at times. It kind of comes and goes a little bit, that offensive line.
Right. That is, generally speaking, the one area of this team that I think people have been a little bit hard on over the last few days, because for the most part, I think people understand that Thursday night football is just weird and things are going to happen and you can't take too much away from it. You just have to be grateful for the win and you move on. I think most people understand that, but the offensive line hasn't totally fallen into place yet. And this kind of ties into another thing that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit because, of course, on Monday, it was Sunday morning, we got this report that teams are kind of circling Tariq Woolen as a possible trade target before this trade deadline comes up in, I think, early November. And that story would probably only leak if the Seahawks had reciprocal interest in moving him. So real quick, do you think anything is going to happen there? How do you feel about that rumor?
I do think something is going to happen here. I do think, like you just said, some of this is the game you play. So I reference it to being like when you hear a team, you hear this right oftentimes at the end of training camp before cut down day, player A is going to be released. Not player A is released. He's going to be released. And then what that does is you're hoping that team wants to generate interest. So rather than cut the guy for nothing, they're able to get something for him. I don't think with Tariq Woolen, that's the same thing here where you're going to cut him. But what I do think you're looking at doing is you probably have a team already making an offer for you. It's not exactly what John would like to get. It's probably some 6th round pick where he'd like to see this be a little bit more improved if he is going to move him. And so he's just making sure, like you would by announcing that release publicly through the rest of the league, that you got 32 teams that are aware of it and that you're absolutely positively getting the best offer for him when you do move him. But I don't think that it's any coincidence that you're hearing these rumors come up just as Seattle is about to get the most healthy in this secondary. Just after you have a Darion Kendrick as the number 1 rated cornerback by PFF, albeit on a sample size of data. I think that this kind of goes 1-1 here a little bit. So yeah, I am kind of expecting that this is going to be probably a move that's going to be made before the deadline.
What would you expect to get back for Tariq Woolen in a trade? What would you estimate being the value where Schneider says yes and another team might also say yes?
You're going to be lucky to get a 4th. You're likely to get a 6th, maybe even a 7th round pick. The thing with him is that he doesn't have any more club control after this year. So who's ever trading for him has to be trading for him on a rental basis, which means that you have to narrow it down to probably playoff teams who can see the value in that with this guy and then will be willing to kind of give you a little bit more than a team would typically be willing to give you. But if you take him to the Raiders, I don't know if the Raiders are offering you more than that 6 because, they've got to risk losing him for nothing at the end of the year at that point if he doesn't remain. So it's just lowered down the value as well. Don't forget that he does also carry, if you were to move him like right now, about $4 million in base remaining on his deal. So that's $4 million that team has to pick up, which may not seem like a big deal, but you have teams like the Giants, for instance, that have like only $3 million of cap space as it stands. So there's some removing of teams. It's not 32 teams. You're going to remove these teams that can't afford it, remove these teams that don't want to do the rental player. And when you limit down the number of teams that a player can go to, that's going to then depress the assets that you can hope to get back in return.
Given that, would you advocate for keeping him and just trying to play the comp pick game then? Because the comp pick would be probably about equivalent to that.
You'll have to walk me through the comp pick aspect, considering the cap situation for the Seahawks next offseason. So I've heard it mentioned to me. So this has been brought up. You're sitting on, you have the 7th amount most of cap space in the entire NFL as it's set up right now for next offseason. You have only $400,000 in dead money currently on the books for next year right now. So you not only have that's that versatile flexibility thing, right? So you have money you can clear from the books to create dead money if you need to create more space. But I guess I'll need to be walked through how we're going to get to a place of, with $57 million in money, even if we do a couple of extensions, still at a spot where we're going to have more go out the door than we're going to take in at that point. because I think you're going to end up, and John's done this in the past, you end up offsetting when you have that much cap of anybody that lose out the door. So would I be okay with that at that point? Yeah, because you're not getting anything in compensatory value, in my opinion.
That is kind of the difficult juggling act you have to pull off, because it's so hard to predict what you're going to do in free agency this far ahead. I do agree that the team will probably do more than they typically do, but you can never be sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, and there'll be some extensions. You'll have probably the Cross, JSN, Witherspoon. All those extensions will probably clip into some of that money a little bit, but you're still going to be at a place where there's not a lot there to be had. And then again, too, what's Tariq Woolen going to sign after this offseason with where he's currently on his trajectory as a player? I mean, before the year, he's hoping for Sauce Gardner. He's lucky to get a 3-year 30 deal right now. Well, what's that going to get you back as compensatory anyway? You know, fifth, sixth. So we all come back around to where if you can just get it now anyway and not wait a year out for it, and it's equivalent as it is, why not do so? I also have no problem holding on to him. This is just a guess I'm making on saying I think this is what the team's going to do, but I wouldn't have any, real hold up as far as having him on the bench for depth. You can never have too many good corners on your roster, or at least guys you can call upon to go play if you need to with injuries. So I think you're in kind of a win-win situation here either way.
Yeah, I would say that if the value you're getting back is a 6th or 7th round pick, my inclination would be to just keep him. I don't think that doesn't do much for me. That's not really moving the needle.
One thing to keep in mind, though, if you do move him and that $4 million does come off the books, maybe that's another player as well, in addition to the draft capital you can utilize that you have with Woolen to pair with other draft capital you have to maybe then go make a commensurate move to then help out and then add on the roster in another spot. What that move is, I don't know. But that would be $4 million. I know we're not bad in cap space right now as it is, but that would be $4 more million you could take off to do something else if you wanted to, not just stand pat. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Like, unless it's a toxic thing, right? Like if he's Percy Harvin out there and we just got to get rid of him, that's one thing. But I don't get that sense with Woolen. I just think he's not playing very well, and I think he's having problems, but I don't think this is a Percy Harvin situation. So I'm not moving him just to move him. I need to move him because I think there's a decent offer coming through that is worth moving him for.
That's fair enough. Totally fair enough. But if you did have that commiserate move, you would do it as well. If there was something to help out the roster in other ways, you'd be less hold up on that. You'd be like, okay, yeah, if there's the secondary move that this can free up to do this, then I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I think so. I'm being a little careful with my heart when it comes to guys like Job and Kendrick. I don't want to say that these guys are just good to go because I've seen them play a handful of good games, but I'm getting to that point. I don't think Joe played very well against Arizona, but he is going to have bad games every now and then because he isn't the most talented guy in the world, but he is still a good player. And, people are talking about Kendrick. I think the thing to understand with Kendrick is if you move him outside, I don't think you're going to get very much good out of that. So he has to be to me, he has to be slot only. I don't think he has the ability to play outside consistently. So there are problems there too, but to kind of wrap this back into our initial conversation, one conversation topic in recent days with Seahawks fans has been the idea of maybe trading Woolen for somebody on the offensive line. Now, I always kind of talk about trading for offensive linemen mid-season as being something that you don't really want to, it's something that rarely works out, but it's hard to not notice what's going on over there in Vegas with Jackson Powers Johnson. So I do want to talk about him because it seems like the Raiders are just kind of done with him, and it's kind of weird why they're done with him because it seems like he's a good player. Would you be interested in some kind of trade deal that involves us sending Woolen to Las Vegas and getting JPJ back? And maybe there's some other pieces in there one way or the other, but foundationally, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd be plenty okay with that. We both loved Jackson Powers Johnson coming out of college. He's a little big and a little bit lacking of some of the necessarily pure athleticism that you'd be looking for from the center position. But I think this is one of those moments where you might look past that to say, look, you're getting a 22-year-old kid who's really young and still in development, who's really talented, as talented a center than as you've had in your in-house going back to Unger. And this kid may be even more purely talented than Unger. He went higher in the draft than Max Unger did. So when I look at that, I go for Woolen, and probably would be a 4th round pick kicker is what you're probably going to have to throw into it in addition to it, because he was just a 2nd round pick a year ago. Would I be willing to do that? Yeah, hell yeah, I'd be willing to do that. And if you can find a way to add offensive line talent to this team, you do it by hook or crook at this point, pretty much, because we're seeing it's still a little bit of a weakness, and it's still something with a lot of room for improvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this is like this rare circumstance where you have a young offensive lineman who seems like he's pretty good. I think he's good. I don't totally know why he got benched. I will admit, like that's a mystery to me.
Pete's doing the Pete thing. What does Pete do to centers? Knowing Seattle's history, tell me what Pete does to centers. If he drafts a guy in the second round, what's he going to do to him first thing?
Something very bad. He's going to move him. He's going to
where's he going to move him? Where's he going to move him?
Well, he's going to move him to guard, right? That's what he did to Posick.
Right. So you go look at Jackson Powers Johnson's PFF scores. What's he listed at? Guard. So
very bad. It was like I looked at this. It was like sub 40, and then at center he was like, I know he was above 60, which is fine for a rookie.
Yeah. So what it is it's Pete back in his old habits of doing the things that remember, this is what drove us crazy about Pete. I love Pete, but he is not the quickest of cats at learning lessons in the best of times. And he will repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again in a hard-headed fashion that where you just can't understand it. And when I look at this Jackson Powers Johnson thing, he's doing the same thing he did with Posick, where you're bouncing a guy that's a pure center coming out of college. Wasn't really a guard there with Oregon. He's a center. That's where they had him. That's where he was best. And you immediately move him to guard from day one, out of position. And then he doesn't perform really well in that guard position, out of position. Wow, that's so weird. Maybe you just want to put him back to what he does well. And maybe it's that they're trying to just cobble the line together because the line is such ass. But from my standpoint, it's a market opportunity for the Seahawks then, because we're not going to play you out of position. We're going to put you in the right place to set you up for success here. So all the more reason I'd be willing to make the move.
Yeah, I would be willing to do it too. I think that there's some kind of trade you could put together there that would be reasonable for both sides. I would say that while JPJ is a much better and more talented player than Sundell or Oluwatimi, he's also not a scheme fit. So even that comes with issues. They're issues that I'm willing to deal with, but I remember watching JPJ do his combine drills. You know, they have the drill where you're in your stance and then you get up, you run this way, you run that way, you run this way, you run that way. And I remember thinking that is the most top heavy offensive lineman I've seen. Yeah. He looks like he's going to fall over. So it's not a perfect marriage, but I think you got to go with it if you have the chance.
He's got that Richie Incognito build. Remember Richie Incognito?
Oh, yeah.
He's got that same sort of body as Richie does. And yes, I saw the same thing with him coming out. And it would be a concern for me, Brendan. I think this is where we come back to where the floor of the position's at right now. And for the past 3 years, PFF, I think, has done a good job of with the scores sort of capturing it, because this is what you see from them on the field, which is that you're kind of sitting with about the 30th best center in the sport for the past 3 years. Brown, whether it's Brown or whether it's Olatimi or whether it's Sundell, you're about 30th. Can this guy get you up to 20th by the end of the year? If you got him in house, get you a bit better, and maybe he's minus some athleticism, but the pure performance is just a little bit better. And certainly as a run blocker, and you put a hat on a hat with this kid at 320, he's a lot bigger than you get at center position too, and his ability to move guys off the line of scrimmage at that size. So maybe there's also a little bit of a benefit to the other side of that, along with there being a bit of the limitation with the athleticism. But considering where the floor of the position's at, that's to me where you overlook that in this spot. And it's not a big, fourth round pick in Tariq Woolen. It's not the same as you putting a second round pick on a guy that's not a scheme fit in your offense line. It's a little bit more of, hey, this is kind of in a Flyerville kind of situation. So there's really not the big loss on the other side of it. It doesn't work out for us.
Yeah, and even if you take a rosier disposition on Woolen than I do right now, even if you really like him, I think that you have to concede that we're not going to re-sign him at the end of the year. That money's for JSN, that money's for Witherspoon, that money's for Cross. We can't pay Woolen what he's going to want and pay Witherspoon what he's going to want, I don't think, especially with the way maybe you could argue that you're getting Woolen for like $10 million a year now because of how bad he's playing, but I don't know if I want to get excited about getting to pay a player less money because he's so bad. Like that's not good.
I think you're on the right point with this. How do you see them in a position of even signing him to the 330 at this point, with the level of play that kind of dips up and down, and with the bad moments you've had of last year and a half and Mike McDonald's defense? And the other part of this is that he's been taken from a Coach Carroll defense where off coverage, zone coverage, a lot of the time, And this year, they've really leaned into letting him get up there, press man, let him run with guys. I mean, he's being put in a position to do what he does best. And yet he is still kind of failing at times around that, where he should be kind of closer to the dominant side of that, being allowed to do this stuff. And it's got to be frustrating for McDonald, because it's just like, dude, I've took you out of the zone hell. You're in man. You're matched up, run step for step, turn around, find the ball. And so I just don't think you got the confidence to sign him either on that. And that's where it's like it turns into a situation where this is why the rumors are coming out. This Seattle doesn't have this stuff leak out, Brendan, unless it's purposeful. They are a locked up organization, buttoned up as they get. They will, there's no leaky ship. There's no like rumors coming out here, rumors out. When stuff is let out, it's purposely let out. And that's where I come back to the reason being this is probably already in the far down the line as far as the deal being in the works.
Right. So I'm open to it. I caution people against thinking you can just trade your way out of having a bad offensive line, but there might be a play or two that's worth pursuing. It's not impossible.
Yeah. And look, if they want a little bit more asset, I might even go up as far as a third, to be honest with you. I'm hearing this offensive line crap. This offensive line draft is toilet paper, used toilet paper, especially the guard positions. Centers might be a little bit better, though I think that's gone backwards a little bit in recent weeks even. So if that's the case and you're anticipating a little bit too in this upcoming draft that it's not going to have those linemen in place, and you liked your grade originally on Jackson and you're willing to go a little bit higher with Woolen, I'd still probably do that too. Because like you said, these kind of trades don't tend to be on deck very often. And remember, he came out as a 21-year-old guy, still just 22 years old. Those are the guys that take, a little bit of time, but when you can let that time invest, you usually get the benefits of it, to where now the guy's like 24, 25, but he's already been in the league for 3 years.
Right. I think I had a very late first round grade on him, if I recall correctly. I did like him a lot.
I was in a similar place. If it wasn't late first, I would have been right at the top of the second. So like he was a real fun center, and the age thing was a part of what you're taking into account when watching him, because you're like, man, he's doing this at 20 years old and he's throwing around guys at the position. He's got bigger size than you normally get down there. That's kind of nice. And, he can really maul guys one-on-one. He can take a nose tackle one-on-one with that size and handle and control him. That's a really cool part about him. May not have the feet to get out to the second level and climb a lot, but he can take a nose one-on-one, doesn't need the double team.
All right. So I did want to cover that a little bit, because that's been the one really interesting piece of news this week, with the Seahawks seemingly making Woolen available. And I imagine, if I had to guess, I'd say something gets done, because I think there's going to be some team out there that is like, I can fix this guy. He's big, he's fast, he's got great ball skills. He's got all this ball production over the last 3 years. Somebody's going to be like, I can get this right. Well,
there's some numbers. Yeah, I agree with you. There's numbers too that show that he's fairly tight in coverage. He doesn't allow very much separation. So there is some good stuff there to pick from. It's stuff that's right now at the forefront that gets caught up in our minds a little bit. The tackling, sometimes the just getting lost in phase on the route, where he just doesn't, again, turn head around the ball, loses track of where the player is a little bit. But there are the good sides too. It's not all purely that he's just a bad player. It's just, it's the investment long term. It's the contract coming in. It's all that stuff that kind of adds up into these decisions, as you'd want it to be with your general manager.
Right. All right. So that's really about all that's going on with the Seahawks in terms of the news right now. Now, obviously, the show is primarily focused on discussing this upcoming Tampa Bay game. Now, I will say this. We're in a little bit of an awkward spot here, because it's Tuesday, which means we have no injury reports, meaning we don't really know what Tampa's going to have. And sometimes that wouldn't be a big deal. It is a big deal here, because Tampa Bay is an absolute mash unit. Todd Bowles yesterday said, I forgot how many players we had get an MRI today, because it was so many. I don't know if you saw that or not, but then he was sitting there, and the media was kind of like trying to name players to help him. Remember, they're like, is it Bucky Irving? And he's like, oh yeah, Bucky Irving. Is it Antoine Winfield? No, Winfield's okay. So a little bit hard to talk about this Tampa Bay team, but what can we say about what we're going to be dealing with this weekend?
Well, if you had the Niners walking in that game and they lost George Kittle, like after about the first quarter, and you look at that team and you go, man, they are riddled with injuries. We're getting them at a very lame place walking into our stadium week one. I think, Brendan, you might be able to, even with some of the wonder about a few of these guys, still be able to say that the Buccaneers are even in worse shape than that 49er team. Because while there are some guys that there are some questions on, and I would argue that if you get a guy that's at a place of get an MRI, that's usually doubtful status for the upcoming week. That's not a good indicator. You're going to have them come back again and try to do it. And if they do, they're not going to be the same as what they normally are. But I will say, the guy Buccaneers, it's a wrist thing, so maybe he can fight through it and just tape it up or whatever with that. But you're already down Jalen McMillan, former Washington wide receiver, out. Now that's not a big deal. They got a lot of receivers. They drafted a Mekabuka to fill in, but then two of their offensive linemen are out in this game, Cody Mock and Godecki. And remember with this Tampa Bay team, why Baker's had the success he's had, partially from Mike Evans or Godwin to throw to, yes, but it's really been that offensive line in front of him that has protected him, that's given him time. And now with these two injuries right off the rip there, Tristan Wirfs just kind of coming back and trying to round into shape last week. They're not the strength that they've been, at least on that. And you throw on top of this, to me, Kalijah Cansey also on IR, dynamic 3 tech for them next to Villa. Those two guys make it really hard to run right up the middle on that defense. He's now out in addition. And then the guys that that are in the questionable status, Hassan Reddick, Bucky Irvin, where's Benjamin Morrison, the rookie, very talented rookie from Notre Dame who's played really good for them. He's got a hamstring injury. I tend to think that that's going to be one that's going to take you more than 1 week to come back off of. So you're really going to be facing this team in as advantageous a position as you could ask for from a Seahawks fan perspective, especially considering that this game is going to be at home, even if a couple of these guys do play. Do you agree?
Yeah. This is, to me, the offensive line was the strength of their team, right? Like going into the season, you look at that offensive line. Wirfs, probably the best left tackle in football. Probably.
Yeah, there's a good argument to be made for it.
Godecki just got paid. He's one of the better right tackles for sure. I think he's at least top 6, top 5.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and then you got Graham Barton. I think he's been good for them. They got Cody Mock. I think Ben Bredelson is their left guard. He's kind of unremarkable, but it is a very stacked offensive line. I'd put it up there with Buffalo and Philadelphia for best offensive line in the game. And 100%. right now, it's just not. Right now, it's clearly not the case. And Bucky Irving's been great for them, and they may not have him at this point. We'll find out. Find out probably a little bit more tomorrow. But this is a team that was leaning very heavily on that, because I also think they lost a significant part of their brain trust this offseason with Liam Cohen going to Duval or Jacksonville. My bad.
Duval.
Yeah. So it's a completely different Tampa Bay team than the one we're used to. And they've won all 3 of their games at the buzzer, I think, or pretty much at the buzzer. Like they are dodging raindrops to get to where they are right now. So this is not even last year's Tampa Bay team to my eyes.
No, I would agree with you there. It's all 4 games they've had to mount a fourth quarter comeback. 3 of them actually have gotten the win on the fourth quarter comeback. I do think, don't forget too as well, remember it was Dave Canales the year before. So it's been a Canales, Liam Cohen 1-2 punch the past 2 years to that offense. And you have to figure when you start losing that many coaches, you're probably going to take at least a little bit of a minor step backwards. Say nothing of maybe the talent is not the same place. We didn't mention as well, Mike Evans is out in this game as well. There's one more throw on top of the heap there. Yep. And so your Godwin's just coming back. Like he still looked like I think his first game last week, and he's still kind of coming back in shape for second game. He's just kind of getting back into round shape. So this is not the same kind of offense they've been that have been so tough, and Baker's been able to have this resurgence there. Bucky Irvin has been a player that's been their ultimate sort of X factor guy. He's their number 1 back, but he's also just the guy that they go to when times get tough, especially sometimes in the passing game. So it's a loss if he's not able to go there, or even if he's just reduced or diminished a little bit. That's tough for that offense, which is already struggling with the playmakers out there and having enough bodies to kind of make it go.
Right. So if it's not Bucky Irving, who do they have behind him? Rashad White, the Arizona State guy, I think. I remember. Right. I think I liked him, but I remember thinking it was more like a third down back. I'm trying to remember. It's been a couple years.
Yeah, you're on the right path with this. He's a guy that's been really highly used for them out of the backfield as a pass catcher. So 50 catches, 64 catches, 51 catches in the last 3 seasons coming into this. But he's also a guy that in running the rock, he averaged 3.7 yards per carry his first year, 3.6 yards his carry second year, 4.3 yards last year. And he's had 4.7 this year, but it's only on 23 carries. So he is mainly used out of the backfield. He is a little bit of a guy to me that's not like as dangerous as a Bucky or a Kimura type where it makes the catch. It's going to make the first guy miss, no doubt about it. He'll make the catch. He's going to get probably tackled. He's kind of that guy, where it's good hands, but you'll bring him down. He can run the screen game really nice. He's good with setting up his blockers on that type of stuff, but he's not the guy that Irvin is running the rock. And there's a reason Irvin ascended over the top of him, despite him being the older player. That there's reason. And that former 3rd round pick. Remember, Irvin was drafted later than this guy, so he's a 3rd round pick. Irvin drafted later. Irvin overtook him for the starting job. Partly just because Irvin's better with the rock, better at getting off tackles, better at getting through the contact balance stuff. And so he's serviceable. He is, but he's better as a 2. He's like a number 2 wide receiver. You're trying to turn into a 1. Like, the cape doesn't quite fit you, big guy.
Yeah. Bucky's just a lot more dynamic, it feels like, too. So big loss. And we know they don't have Evans, and we know they don't have Jalen McMillan. So you got Godwin, you've got Egbuka. Who do they have other than those 2 guys? Who's behind those 2?
It's where you're getting into like,
it's point I'm trying to make is we are getting
Brian Miller, 140-pound Tez Johnson,
95 pounds, Tara
95
Reid,
pounds, soaking wet,
Kate Moss.
Yeah, exactly. It's light, man. It's Tez Johnson and Ryan Miller right now because they've got Jalen McMillan and Jaden Smith and Mike Evans all in the already IRS. You're to the depths of your wide receiver core. Like they're to the Tariq Young side of their depth right now. Like that guy's going to get significant snaps. And I'll tell you something that stood out in looking at some of the advanced stats. There's some fun stats in this game that jump out in this one. But one thing that I was noticing was one of the lower teams in the NFL at generating separation, 29th in the NFL at generating separation on routes. So you go, okay, your receivers are down. I'd expect your backups aren't going to be generating as much separation. And if you watch Emeka and it's not, let's say, I know he's got the one-handed catch, which was amazing, but a lot of his other catches, very tight. And watching a lot of the tape on Emeka, he's not necessarily generating a lot. Remember with him, the one thing with him was on the speed and is he a slot guy? Can he play on the outside? Well, he's being forced maybe to play a little bit more to the outside right now because of the injury situations. Godwin coming back. Godwin's more of a pure slot guy. There were times in watching the tape with him on the Eagles with Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean out there where he just couldn't create the separation from the outside. I do still come back to saying he really is a slot guy, but you're having to play kind of the 2 slots right now out of necessity. He's a good player, by the way. Just that there are those points with him where you can see where it's not always creating that easy separation. I come back to wondering a little bit about that speed that we wondered about on game film, where it's like just may not have enough quite juice to the outside.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too with him. I think that he is a very good slot. I think that he's a little miscast right now, but he's overcoming. And also apparently overcoming would be Baker Mayfield, because if he's having success with receivers that can't get open and a beat up offensive line, I've always been reticent to give Baker Mayfield credit. I even last year, I was kind of like, he's all right. I think that Liam Cohen's doing a lot of the heavy lifting there, but he's finding his way through. And it's kind of amazing that we're here right now with him. I've never been a big fan of his, but he's really kind of made himself a beloved figure in that Tampa Bay sports scene. And I can't believe we're here.
It's the new kind of model of the quarterback that we're seeing that's really taking flight in the sport in a major way. And I've got some theories on this, Brendan. I think some of it is the nature of how the NFL has turned and shifted. And I think that's part of the shift in the turn has come back to benefiting those quarterbacks who can do more advanced things, that the simplification of spread offenses in the 2010s is maybe starting to kind of fade away a little bit. Not that it's going to go away completely, but more of what comes now to the forefront is a bit of the old school. Like, you got to be good at the line of scrimmage. You need to be able to change into the right play. You need to have some of the finer details that you can only learn from within the quarterback position if you've been in this sport for 5 or 6 years. It's not going to happen on a rookie just coming off the bus. It's like, hey, I'm starting instantaneous. I'm going to have all this stuff in my back pocket, and it makes sense. And Baker's a representation of that. We've had Geno's a representation of that. We've seen Sam Darnold this year as a representation of that. There's some other examples in the league you can go out there and find. But it goes to say that I think we're moving into a new era now, Brendan, where my opinion on this, and I may be out of pocket on this one, but I think that we're going to find the next couple of years at least. This may shift into the late 2020s, but the next couple of years at least, I feel like we're going to see the young quarterbacks who come in struggle to necessarily find as much instantaneous success as some of the ones we've recently seen here over the last 10 years. I know Jaden came in last year and really lit the world on fire, but he's having a little bit of a backward step second year, even before the injury. He wasn't quite looking as dynamic on that. And that's a part of what they were able to make that go with, Brendan, was because they were able to run the air raid there in Washington. A big reason why I think this is the case is because NFL is going back to traditional offenses, under center, pre-snap reads, play action pass, where your footwork's got to be on point. And a lot of these quarterbacks coming out of college don't have that. So I think a big part of his success is him, of course, doing the hard work that we've seen from some of these other guys, Brendan. But a big part of this success also is just from the fact of where the game is at, what drives success offensively right now with the cover two shell proliferation, and what you need to kind of counter that. And it's a good time to have a quarterback like this if you do, and be a Tampa or Seattle, that right time, right place, so to speak.
Right. And it is fun to watch. I will admit, like, I know Baker's abrasive, but I don't think he does it to an annoying extent. He's not like Johnny Manziel or something, who is genuinely like a very obnoxious human being. Baker's just kind of fiery, and I'm kind of learning to appreciate it.
Yeah, I am too. He's grown on me with time. I wasn't a big Baker guy coming out of Oklahoma and some of the antics he had out there at Oklahoma, but he has, carried himself as a pro. He's had a hard road of it. I always have a lot of respect for the guys that have to go back and re-earn their chance and really fight through and aren't given just an easy, simple second, third opportunity, as was the case with him. So I think he's a real easy guy to root for. He plays the game tough. He's hard. He goes out there and fights his butt off every snap. He's a guy that'll extend a play and just try to make something happen. You really can appreciate that from a quarterback. He doesn't have any give up in him, so to speak. And that's certainly worth lauding.
So with all that being said, what does Mike McDonald have to cook up here to halt this Tampa Bay offense, which has still been pretty good so far this year, despite their problems? What are you looking for?
So there's some certain things that are going to carry over that have been the way opponents have played Tampa Bay up into this point from them offensively. And there's certain things that Mike may need to adjust in the way that they've rolled things out up until this point this year. You've got, first off, they're a team that is looking at light boxes at the 22nd highest rate in the NFL. So our light box percentage, which is, I think, some of the lowest in the NFL, matches up well to how opponents have played Tampa Bay coming into this game. That part's going to be nice. They are blitzing them at a pretty high rate as far as the 12th highest rate in the NFL right now, whereas that's on the other side of it from the Seahawks standpoint, we're like 31st. And so I wonder on this one if this is not maybe going to be a game where Tampa Bay's got some leakiness with that pass protection. The running game's not quite as dynamic as it's been. Mike's been very hesitant to blitz coming into this game prior in these last couple of games. Is this one where maybe you're willing to dial it up a little bit more to challenge some of those protections, to challenge some of the weakness on that offensive line? Because it has been effective. The thing that stood out too, and one of the biggest stats that I saw on this is the quickest time to pressure. They have the fastest time to pressure in the NFL does Tampa Bay, that offensive line. So that's again where I come back to, look, you'd think the offensive line losing a couple of bodies, worse being out, maybe they're a little weakened than where they've been. Yeah, they are. The data sort of does supply to that. Question comes down to, does Mike think his front four, like he's done through the first 4 games, where he said very, very succinctly, my front four will get the pressure on their own. I can drop all these guys into coverage and I'll get the benefits of that. And that's a lot of what's probably driven some of the interceptions you've gotten, is having so many guys back there at depth. But this is the one where I'm wondering on Mike how he plays that a little bit. And I'd factor to guess that this is probably the game that we're going to blitz the highest amount as we get through this game 5. This will be the highest blitz game probably, I would say, partly because with Tampa Bay, that offense, watching the tape with them now with losing these receivers, it's getting very east-west rather than north-south. There's a lot of trying to get things stretched out with width rather than trying to work it to the depth, because you don't have the speedsters. You don't have the guys that take the top of the defense off. So it makes things very compressed for them a little bit as far as their attack goes there. And I think you can, maybe that's all the more reason you can kind of risk the blitz. You worry about the blitz risk and, okay, they're going to hit us with a screen. That's kind of how they'll hit you, is like, well, there'll be a Rashad White screen play. That'll be the way that they counter it rather than trying to hit you with a go ball up the sideline.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen the numbers. I feel like we blitzed Kyler a little bit more than I was expecting in that Arizona game. Maybe I'm just kind of focused on a handful of plays that I noticed the blitz really stick out. I feel like we're ramping it up a little bit as is, and I didn't expect us to blitz Kyler as much as we did.
Yeah, I think it's just that, to your point, it is effective. It's the flea flicker. You're running a double corner blitz on the flea flicker that gets home. There were a few little moments in there, but you still came out with the blitz percentage is still just tremendously low for the defense right now in general. It's kind of shockingly low, even for McDonald. and where he's been at that. So you're at, you're at like 16.8%. So you might have been a couple percentage points over where you were in this one with Arizona, but it was still, it's like you blitz more than Rodgers, for instance, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's still very, very low. I mean, it is minuscule almost compared to where the rest of the league is at. You're at 16% right now. The highest in the league is at 43.5% being the Atlanta Falcons. So it's like they're almost triple your blitz numbers.
Yeah, and it is working. So you can't really argue with it too much. It does seem like it's working quite well. And I wonder if something as simple as getting Emanwari back will open things up a little bit, because I do think there was some grand plan to have Emanwari be all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the blitzing opens up a little bit with him back, because I think he will be back this week. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't.
Well, you certainly wonder if you're open on doing this sort of flop out move with, just for instance, this, because I know we think of the slot. I think the slot's valid, Brendan, that he'll maybe do some stuff in the slot. Sure. And maybe that's where he's just at 24/7. I have wondered if maybe some of this, though, is maybe he comes in and takes Drake Thomas's snaps half the time, and then half the time goes and eats Kendrick's snaps from the slot. And if Drake Thomas is out there, wouldn't you think that a bigger version of a guy like Emanwari, a better version, a faster version, a longer version would be better in those moments when you're bringing him out for those flop moments? Because you're essentially bringing out Drake in times where you think they're going to pass. So if that's the case, and you're not thinking you're going to deal with the run with him out there, I would think that he'd even potentially play even the run better than Drake Thomas with the size he's got, and remembering how he worked off blocks in college. So I feel like you can kind of flip between the two roles on that.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Drake Thomas thing. I appreciate him as a backup, but I know he got way more snaps than Knight in this last game. It was like it was more than 2-1, excuse me. And I understand that Knight's having some issues. Maybe I understand that he might not be in complete game shape because he missed all the offseason, but I don't know. I don't like that. I feel like the ceiling on Thomas is very low, and I'm trying to get Knight out there more. So one way or the other, I'm hoping that clears up.
Yeah, I mean, they're telling us Drake Thomas is he's a great coverage linebacker, but I don't think I've seen him make a play in coverage this year so far. So I don't know how, if that's the big centerpiece of his game, because he is undersized, he's going to get swallowed up by blockers. He's not going to get off in the run game at that point. So, I mean, it hasn't been exposed up until this point, but I'm with you on that, and that I don't really quite always see the added value with him on the field right now.
Right. Okay, so you think we're dialing it up a little bit more this week with the blitz, and that's going to be the notable thing. I like it.
Yeah, if you're 16%, maybe you're more like he maybe gets up to the 25 to 30% when it's not going like 50-50, but you maybe kind of double up your blitz rate of where it's been coming into this game.
Right, and some of this stuff is circumstantial too. Like if you can get Tampa Bay into 3rd and long a lot because they can't run the ball, then you can open it up a little bit more.
That's when Mike tends to bring out the flavor. That's for sure. Stack boxes, simulated pressures. He likes you being more 3rd and long than he likes to do that if you're in sort of the 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, because there's some good counters to offensively hot route throws you can kind of go into to make at that point. So got to be careful there.
All right. We got some donations here. First, we got Old Greasy becoming a member. This is on your side, Old Greasy.
Let's go. Thank you, Old Greasy. Appreciate you.
All right. Next, we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something else there?
No, I said you're the man. Appreciate it.
All right. Jay Gundy, thank you for the $10. Need Reek to play lights out to up his trade value. I don't think keeping him on the roster is an option. In my opinion, he mentally isn't a Mike McDonald type of player. That is kind of, it's gotten to the point where the thing with Woolen, it's not just that people don't think he's very good. There's like genuine animosity there because there's this sense that he is not all that he can be because he doesn't want it. And I think people get very frustrated with that. And it's been really sad to see this happen with him because of where we started back in 2022, but we are here now.
Yeah, he had such an exciting start, and the sky just seemed the limit at that time as he just was learning the position, yet already able to take the ball away so ardently, and just the gifts that he has you can't teach, and you always are enamored by that possibility. And I think that it speaks to Mike McDonald being enamored by that possibility, that he's let this kind of go along as it has with the moments that have been there. Because I think I do agree, Jay Gundy, in a lot of ways that this is not necessarily a Mike McDonald type of player. Mike McDonald doesn't strike me as a guy that wants to have to make sure he's got guys tapped in fully at all times. He wants you walking off, the bus with that. He wants you on the sideline already in that mode. So they've tried to make it go. They've stretched it out. I do agree. I just think that it's maybe not a fit. I think he's still a guy that can play really well, and still that upside might be a better place, a place that might be a more loosey, easier, free environment like a Raiders team where you can just go back. That's part of this too, is he's a Coach Carroll kind of cornerback. You're not wired this way. Coaches want you wired. That's okay. I'll accept you for how you are, and I'll work around what you are. So there's other coaches too, the other side, that might make better sense for a Reek type mentality of player. But yeah, it'd be great if he'd go out there, get a couple picks. And then maybe that, could flip that on its ear a little bit.
Yeah. Assuming the Seahawks continue to keep having success, I do wonder if this team will be hesitant to deal a player for a draft pick in a year where they might be actually trying to make a run at something. So even if the player isn't a perfect fit, even if he's not playing great, I do wonder if they kind of go, you know what, we actually have a chance to make a run this year after all. Let's not take away our now assets for a future asset, even if things aren't going great. I do wonder if they eventually just kind of go, let's write it out.
Well, to your point, that's where we come back to the value you get back. 6th-round pick is not a lot. And again, you ain't getting much with a 6th-round pick. And so you go, okay, it's a future pick. It ain't going to be much down the line anyway. Bottom line on this, compensatory or not, on that side of it, you just go, well, we're going to half season of this guy on the bench with depth, and that gives us the warm and fuzzies. And you oftentimes have to call upon that depth even a couple times and throughout the year. So maybe we're more worthwhile to kind of roll with that in that way. And I'd be okay with that too. I'm not hardline on this one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people say just play him in the don't play him in the fourth quarter. Just play him the first 3 quarters. He's like a starting pitcher.
I mean, hey, maybe it could work.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get through the 3rd time of the lineup, Brendan. Once you get through that 3rd time lineup, that's when they're really seeing your pitches right, and that's really where they're feeling you. You can fool them on the first two rolls through.
Absolutely. I don't know, man. It's a funny solution. I remember back in the day, people said that Andy Reid should be like that because he always struggled at the end of games. Just have like a closer come out as like the play caller at the end of these close games.
Hey, I mean, that maybe it could work. I mean, it has been at the certain moments he's really given this stuff up. It tends to be more like down the line. So, maybe there's something to that.
Jay Gundy again, thank you for the $5. Mike McDonald has 10 days to make life hell for Baker. R.I.P. Baker.
R.I.P. Baker.
Yeah, and look, you're getting them on easy mode, right? No Mike Evans, maybe no Irving, no Mock, no Godecki, Godwin running around there on one leg. Even Wirfs is probably not 100%. Like you can't ask for an easier setup here.
You really can't. I mean, this schedule was advantageous on the outlook of this, Brendan, walking into this season, and it's only been made much more so the case as we have moved through this schedule through the early parts. And it's part of what sets us up for a real ideal to make some noise this year if this team can really fully come together. But you got the mini bye. You've got them injured up here. I mentioned a little bit more of the blitz, having that extra couple of days like Jay mentions. Certainly you think maybe open the door to you throwing out some of those extra machinations on defense, a little bit more of the blitzes. Let's rep this out a little bit more because we got a little extra time to do so. Maybe, I mean, I know they took kind of a couple of days off, but at least Mike's got it kind of into the game plan, maybe built within. And I can see it. I think if you had the guy that was going to take the top off the defense you were worried about one-on-one, maybe you would be less, but with them being weakened out in that way, you just go, look, they don't have the dangerous pieces to hit us in that way. Let's trust our coverage on the back end and get after this guy.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I don't want to fall into the trap here, but I am feeling pretty good about this matchup right now. Our defense versus their crippled offense.
Yeah. It's not a guarantee of a win. We've seen that on week 1, but it is, you agree, they're worse right now health-wise than none of the Niners were walking in. The Niners were pretty bad.
Easily. Like this is I think we all forget how good Mike Evans is because he's been around so long you take it for granted, but that guy's still very good.
And him and Baker were that like this as far as when Baker walked in there, he knew how to use Mike. He knew I can definitely utilize this guy to the utmost. So that's a big loss for him. That's the security blanket. It was for Manziel back in the day. Just throw it down there. Mike Evans is somewhere. He'll go get it.
Mm-hmm. Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $4.99. I love Pete, but am so glad we got MM. Watching Raiders games gives me bad flashbacks. Yeah, it's we're not off to the greatest of starts here on the Pete Carroll reclamation project thing.
No, it's a little bit rough, and he's getting hammered, and Gino's getting hammered. I think for me, I would be hesitant for anybody to try to get to any conclusion on Pete this year with the
Oh yeah,
with the the Raiders. But I look, Dylan, that's the big worry you have with him is that, and I've always maintained Pete's got him in him to be still, I think, a very good coach in this league. It's just you got to be aware of where you've been weak and what you've been unwilling to correct. And I mentioned about him with centers and moving him to guards. And he's got a variety of things that just aren't necessarily good things working in his favor that I think are good things. And he can't quite sometimes feels like he doesn't want to move off the spots on that. And I thought it was with some of the hires this offseason and what he was doing, but it's been a bit of a rough start, but still got to give him the time. That Raider organization was in such bad shape walking in there. There's been so much damage done through the years in there. You got to feel like,
yeah,
give the guy
it's going
some
to be a
time.
minute. It's going to take a minute, and Pete doesn't have a minute, and that's part of the problem. He doesn't want to take a minute. He wants. That's why they brought back Max Crosby. That's why they traded for Gino. These are not things that you're doing if you know you need a minute.
It's a good point, and I would agree. It's the press on his part to try to do this fast because, time is of the essence. You can't operate that way. You got to do things right. And the Crosby move and putting on extension, and boy, how bad do you feel for Crosby now? As you're watching this guy is going to frit away his career playing a loser. And I mean, look, Myles Garrett did the same things. It's like, look, you signed up for it. You probably could have pushed in a way to try to go get a trade if you really wanted to. And the Raiders should have probably moved him and gotten assets and tried to, reset this thing. But they didn't. And they're going to pay the price. And it's probably going to be in part why it then delays a little bit of the process to get into the right spot at that point. So,
yeah. Last offseason, when it became clear that Pete wanted to coach again, I remember thinking, I don't know if it could ever happen, but I think the Cowboys was the play because they had the quarterback in place. They had already paid him. They had already paid CD. They had Micah at the time. Of course, they hadn't paid him, but maybe they would have paid him if Pete was there. I don't know. But I remember thinking, you want to go to a place like that where they're ready to win now, and they're not going to have to wait. They have what they have, and they just got to go. I really feel like that would have been better than what we got.
I could have seen that being a possibility. I do think he wanted to probably stay closer to the West Coast as a West Coast guy, which is a part of it. And then does he really want to work for Jerry? I mean,
well, no one does, but who wants to work for Bowl Cut Davis either, right?
Well, I think the Tom Brady factor was the fact if it was no Tom Brady on this, do I think that he would have gone with Davis and Raiders? I don't know if I think he would have. I think the big part of Carroll coming there was the understanding that Brady was a part of this process.
Right. How long was Pete's contract? Did he get the 6 year from Vegas?
I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, if he did, this could be a while. This could be an ugly half decade.
Well, they're gonna have to give it the time on the other side of it. So it may end up being just ugly, but even if it's the hope to turn to right, you're going to need to give this a couple of years. I don't think you can come even into next year and you'd be like, okay, now we can judge him now right now into year 2 because he's had that one off season at it's a Raider organization for 25, 30 years. It's been poorly run and has had a bad environment and a bad, bad atmosphere. And you've just moved the organization from Oakland to Las Vegas, and you don't have a lot of fans necessarily there in Vegas. And there's a, few that are like Oaklandites, I guess, but it's a mess of a situation. It's very hard to get it right. There's few coaches that have in my lifetime there with the Raiders. And I think you got to, because of that, then give Pete a lot of time. Doesn't mean that I think it's going to necessarily get resolved, but I do think that you can't be short-sighted on this from a Raider standpoint and be like, Pete, you got 2 years. And if we don't see it after 2 years, then that's it. You got to know where your organization was walking in with this guy, and then it's going to take time. It took us time with our organization. And that was us coming off a Super Bowl, 4 years prior when Carroll came in. I know bad as Mora looked.
Like
you were just barely removed of a Super Bowl. And still even that, Pete needed a couple of years, 1,500 players moved in 2 seasons of churn. All of that needed to happen for you to eventually get to the 12, 13 squad. So
right.
Why wouldn't this be the same thing, if not even more so, it being a requirement here?
Right. And of course, Pete got very lucky. He found a quarterback kind of under a rock, which that may not be happening in Vegas. It's not often that actually happens.
No, it's not. And they're on that Gino contract, and some of the Raider fans are already asking for him to be benched with that. And it's getting a little rough out the gates there for both those guys.
Yeah. And obviously I had my problems with Pete at the end, but I do feel for him right now. This is this is not fun for him. He cannot be having fun right now.
It'd be a tough job if he was in his prime, 55-year-old head coach, that's just hungry. And it's another thing is you're an elder coach and you got to do this much work to get this thing right. It's a lot. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now that he's not here, it's so much easier to look back on the good stuff with Pete, right? It's so much easier to remember the good times when he's not actively coaching your team into mediocrity for several years in a row.
Yeah, it is the nice part with him moving on is you can get back into that place because when he is your active coach, you have to be, as we do with our analysis, looking at what they are right now, where they're going and what they truly are, not what they were 10 years ago, but where are they right now? And we don't have to do that as much with him. I feel the same way about Russ. And then I just get to celebrate both these guys, what they did in Seattle, the Super Bowl championship they brought here, but there doesn't have to be any more of that. Not that there has been for me with Russ for a while here, but just that you get to kind of put all that to bed because it's not as much impacting to your team and you just hope the best for him. And I hope he gets it turned around there and I hope he's given the time there. I think he will be, but it ain't going to be the easy fix. It's going to be a bit of a long road and that's going to be a tough division to get it done in.
Yeah, that's the other hard part about it too. Like you got to work so hard and I don't know if I see a pathway to being anything in that division for the next 5 years. Those other three teams are pretty set. Even the Chiefs don't look as good as they typically are, but they're going to be fine. They're going to be at least okay. Maybe they won't be great, but it's how do you get past all three of those teams? It seems almost impossible when you're starting from nothing.
Well, there's an opportunity there for Pete to brighten his star more than ever before because the job you have to do with the Raider organization, and to your point, what you have to overcome with where that division is right now, with a division that has three teams that have their franchise quarterback and they're happy with their quarterback, that you've got to overcome that. You don't necessarily have your long-term quarterback and you don't have but just the beginnings of a roster being put together. Time is of the essence. If he gets this pulled off, it will be one hell of an amazing job because this is not an easy button work thing here for
Absolutely.
Carroll. This is very much a climb up the hill.
Mm-hmm. Quinn, thank you for the $5. Is there a stat anywhere that counts how often a team shows blitz pre-snap, even if they don't actually throw more than 4? I love this question because I would like to see something like that too, but I don't know of anything.
If they don't actually show more than 4. So the way you could look at this, that I don't know if it's exactly going to be accurate to what you're looking for on this, but the stack box percentage would show you how often you're getting a defense stacking the box, which is showing a blitz basically when you stack the box. So they do have defenses that, what's your stack box rate. I'm trying to see where that's at here.
You'd have to cross-reference it though with when they actually did blitz versus when they didn't.
Yes, that's true. So you'd have to kind of reference
imperfect.
It would be imperfect on that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just showing, he's just saying that they show blitz, not when they actually blitz, just show blitz is what he's saying. So that's just the stack box, Brendan, at that point. That would capture that. Hold on, let me see if I can find it here.
Makes sense.
I guess it's on the run defense, stack box percentage. Yeah, so it's under the run defense, but stack box is stack box, basically, as far as that goes. So Seattle's the most infrequent team of stacking the boxes in the entire NFL at 30th. No, wow. 30th. They're second, 30th, and only the Colts and the Jaguars stack the box less.
Yeah, would not have expected that, but there you go.
It's been kind of the big key with them.
All right. We got more donations to get to, but I think we got to tell the people a little bit about Sleeper.
Let's let them know.
All right, let's let them know real quick. So let me set things up here real quick. While I'm setting up, can you just briefly tell the people about the good folks at Sleeper?
Absolutely. Sleeper is a new app. It's going to be coming here into October to Washington. It's going to be awesome. So it's been locked down for you guys out in Washington State for a very long time, being able to use these type of apps. You think you know football? Then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn your game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players. With more stats than any other daily fantasy app, just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code SBN or Nest. Me and Brendan are having a code off, so you can use either of those two side of it, and they will match you up to 100% of your first deposit, up to $100. So terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details.
All right. So it's relatively early in the week, and I think they're tentative about putting stuff up before they know who's going to play and what kind of the health situation is. So we don't have Seahawks lines yet, but we do have this very interesting for Seahawks fans Thursday night game. The Niners going to LA to play the Rams. We certainly care about that one. So let's take a look here at some of these lines. Let's try to feel out what we think might be of note and see if we can feel like some of this stuff is going to hit or not. So I got a free one right here with Matt Stafford. All he has to do is throw for 1 yard. I think we're just going to throw that one on there for sure. What do you like? What are you feeling, Brandon? You can see the screen, right?
I can. I got my one up here too. So I'm looking at it, and I would go with. It's hard not to feel like with Puka that he's going to go past 98 yards. It's getting up there though with him on that.
Yeah, you get the bonus too.
Yeah, you got the bonus with it, but that feels like a trap. I feel like we're at Fury Road, and like that's a trap. What about going to Devontae Adams in this game at 56.5? Half the yards of what Puka gets at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's just getting up a little bit there too much with Puka.
Yeah, that Puka thing, it does feel like bait. It really does.
Yeah.
Although it is getting very annoying how he's always open and nobody ever covers him. I'm getting a little sick of it, to be perfectly honest.
Colts just refused to roll coverage in that game, didn't they? They did not. They just we're not rolling coverage. I don't know if it was the fear of Devontae Adams, but it maddened me. The guy had 15 targets in the game, Brendan. They just Stafford's like, all right, you're gonna single him up, okay? You gonna play zone? All right, I'll tear you apart.
All right. I'm gonna go with a Ricky Pearsall anytime touchdown. I'm feeling like he's gonna do well in this game, and it sounds like the Niners might play Mac Jones, which is
you sure about that with his knee? That knee was awful last week with him. He had to leave the game with the knee injury.
Mac?
Pearsall.
Oh, Pearsall. I did not notice that. It is the short week too. Shoot, I actually didn't know
he
that.
Landed on the. He landed hard. It was the same knee that he walked in that he was injured with, and he did that thing like these players don't wear knee pads. Remember DK last year at the Atlanta games? It was the same thing where it's just lands right on the knee, no pad.
Okay, I'm gonna back out of that and go with Jawan Jennings instead.
Okay,
I'm going with Jawan instead. The Niners, they're gonna have Mac Jones out there. It sounds like, which is obviously the better of their two quarterbacks. So. That's got to be good for Jawan, right?
I would think so. I mean, there's no more receivers left, right? So,
who else is it going to be?
Who else is going to be? And I'm going to go with no, they don't have DeMarcus Robinson on there. Damn. Yeah, they do. They have DeMarcus, but they don't have. I want receiving yards with DeMarcus. Oh, you're not giving me that, huh? Okay, let's go with Higbee. We'll go 18. I like going the low yards, so 18.5 receiving yards for Higbee. Let's go more.
Those are good. So that's our entry for this week. We got the free one with Stafford. We got the over on Adams at 56.5. We have a touchdown for Jawan Jennings, and we have 18.5 or more for Tyler Higbee. We can go 10.32x, which means with a $10 entry, we are doing a over $100 payout. So get on over to Sleeper yourself, and you can put together a ticket of your own. By the way, I believe the ticket that I put together for my videos last week actually came through. So
let's go.
I'm handing out winners here. People.
He's dropping money in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Mark the date and time. I got one right. I got one. I'm leaving here with something.
Let's go.
All right. So Sleeper. Promo code, mine is SBN, Brandon's is Nest. So use one of those, get your 100% match on a $100 deposit, and get to Sleeper. And tomorrow's the first day of October, is it not?
It is indeed. So in the state of Washington, we're being told that this is going to open up in full to you guys. You don't have to be in a casino to use the app now in Washington. So go nuts out there and have some fun with it. A lot of and especially you can do cross reference. You can do Major League Baseball with football at the same time. So you can kind of do two different picks between you on Julio's going to go off, Cal's going to go off. When you pair that to a Seahawks, you can kind of do the two there. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, maybe you can, I don't know, maybe they have like ostrich racing on Sleeper. I don't know. I haven't looked through everything they got yet, but maybe.
They're including a lot of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back to it. I want to finish up looking at these donations. Sean McLeod, keep Reek case of injury, play him first 3 quarters. So this is this thing I'm talking about. You need like your Munoz or your Brash you can bring in. Who's our Munoz? Who's our Brash? Because Woolen can be our Castillo. He can be our Gilbert.
I'm with it, Sean. I mean, it's crazy enough just to work. It might just work. So, and like I'd admit, the problems he's had have been more in down the line in the game, not early on in the game. Maybe the coaches kind of pick up on that a bit.
It's a fun idea, but I think more realistically, it hurts so much to give up on a guy with this much talent. But I'm kind of at that point. I'm pretty much there, and I'm not happy about it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, if you didn't have Job doing what he's doing, say nothing of you feel so good about the slot with Emanwari and with Kendrick in there to kick Witherspoon to the outside. Say nothing of I kind of want to see at this point with Witherspoon, in my opinion, as well. I've seen what he is from the slot. I don't think he's a bad slot. I think he's still a top-notch corner from the slot. I'd like to see if he might be able to be great working off the outside. I'd like to see if there's another level to Witherspoon's game out on that outside. So this is where it's odd man out. If you were lighter as you've been in recent years with the cornerback room, then it'd just be no doubt that you rock them out there and you roll them and you say, well, we just got to go with the ups and downs. But the fact you got a strength here means you don't have to go with a weakness. You can trot out the other guys at that point. And I'd love for it not to be the case, but we've kind of reached that part where it's kind of the fork in the road at this point. And you either got to go with your greatest strength out there, the best guys in that secondary you can put out there, or you're going with the guys you're hoping for the potential out there. And you're coming down to have to make that choice now. It gets hard for Mike, I think, to turn away from the best secondary I can put out on the football field at any given one time, making that the priority.
Right. And with Emanwari coming back this week, and somebody in the chat told me that it's pronounced Emanwari. So
I know I'm trying to learn
condition.
I am too. It's it slips though. It's hard for some. You get locked into saying something a certain way. It's tough to move the tongue off.
Yeah. So I am thinking about how that kind of squishes everything down and probably makes it easier to move Witherspoon to the outside because the plan was Emanwari to be a nickel. So I think we're going to get that. I
do too. And I think that just pushes Reek. And that's where we come back. The rumors coming out at this point in time with these guys coming back to the field as they are, it's like, that's the timing kind of aligns up.
Dak Dumpster Scott. Interesting username there.
The Dallas Cowboy fans hate Dak, Brennan. It's so funny.
Yeah.
They really hate him.
Yeah.
It is wild to a man, Brennan. Like, it ain't like, well, half the fan base loves him and half the fan base, like, no. Every Cowboy fan that comes into my chat's like, get Dak out of here on a rail, please.
Yeah. I too hate having top 8 quarterbacks on my team. I don't get that one, man. How can you watch that Packers game and not be like, wow, this guy's really good? Maybe he's a little overpaid, but this is a very good quarterback. And he is in his bag right now. Like that Green Bay game, that was a work of art.
To your point, I think you're the highest paid guy in the sport for 2 years running, and people get that stuck in their craw. And then they go, well, how is that limiting us and building out the rest of this team and a Cowboy team that's obviously limited in certain ways? It's a valid question I kind of ask in that standpoint of it, but it just is kind of hilarious that so much of it is just so anti-capable quarterback play and just completely against it,
Yeah, I mean, not that he would make this team better, right? Not that I want him on this team right now, but I wouldn't mind a Dak Prescott. That guy's good.
I'm not the biggest guy on him. I can acknowledge he's been a good quarterback and has played at a good level and all that. He's not my favorite cup of tea, but I'm not anti him either on that side of it.
But as for trade Woolen to Cincinnati for Hendrickson, that's assuming a level of incompetency that I don't even think the Bengals are capable of. Maybe if they hired Bill O'Brien as their GM, the combined incompetency would allow this, but I don't know.
They're just high on Woolen, Brendan. You're not understanding. They're seeing the vision on Woolen. They're seeing the dream. They're dreamers, Brendan. Don't knock them for being dreamers. You're kicking in an extra. Woolen's going to be the kicker part of the trade. The draft capital would be the forefront of the trade. So you're probably giving up like third round City plus Woolen, something like that. Maybe you can get away with fourth round, but that feels like kind of too cheap on that side of it. It's probably going to cost a third and Woolen to kind of do it, or just a third, period. So we'll see on that. We'll see on that. Hendrickson's kind of an interesting guy because the Bengals look like they're going to kind of fall away here, and then there are teams that do need some edge help. It does feel like to me, like for instance, the Niners might be, if they can win a couple games, might be in that a little bit more ardently in that spot of things where they stand. They got some cap space and they've got Bosa out for the year at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty clearly the play here. The Niners need to be on the phones 24/7 finding an edge rusher because it's untenable right now. I think Lawrence I don't know if Lawrence inhaled a single air molecule that was exhaled by a Niners pass rusher in that game. That was bad.
You're right. Yeah, he didn't get breathed on. Like he couldn't tell how if they had bad breath from that defensive line, he wouldn't have been able to tell because they weren't close enough for him to smell it. I mean, it was tough watching that Niner defense trying to generate pressure. So they may come down to it. Part of it is I think that they're making their bones with maybe the fact that this is just a punt season anyway. And how can they not look at it with where their injury are, even with the 3-0 start, especially with they have games on deck. They're probably going to lose the Rams game this week, probably lose the game after that next week. They're probably going to be like 3-3. So that's where if it goes that way, then they're kind of out. But then, who then goes and makes the move for Hendrickson at that point? I mean, as an Eagles team, it's kind of, it feels like maybe an Eagles kind of move that they'd go out there and they'd make.
I like
them
it.
Over the top. Lions should make that move.
I wonder if and this would be bad. Don't get me wrong. This would be a bad idea. I wonder if a team like Dallas might do it because their defense is so bad. They don't want to give up on the season. Their offense is playing really well. I wonder if maybe they get involved. I don't think they should, but I wonder if they would.
It's a valid question to ask on that one. They got the cap space, right? So, they've got the cap space. The cost is going to be much less. Jerry, come back and all right, look, I got multiple first round picks here. Micah, I won't give up a third for Trey Hendrickson. Same player, equal play, little older. Equal player, third round pick, 2 first rounders. Jerry's a mastermind. You can all thank me now. Can't you just see Jerry doing something like that on a presser?
Yeah. And I think if you look back in recent history, every Cowboys second round pick is a complete disaster. Like they get nothing from those second round picks. So even if it's a second rounder, I don't think people would mind that much. Like, why not?
Yeah, no, I don't. Cowboys fans would totally applaud it. I mean, they wouldn't mind at all. It definitely helps their defense out, and they need help off the edge. There's no doubt there. So it's something that would also fill a little bit of a need for them. It is one of those moves though with the Cowboys. Like they don't make those kind of moves. They're usually too conservative in their approach to be that active and really going out there and making that kind of addition.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, and I don't think they should. I think they should just kind of take it on the chin this year and see what happens next year. But I could see them maybe saying, hey, we don't want to be irrelevant this year. We're not ready for that.
Yeah, I could see the same thing on that too. Absolutely. Especially because they've gotten a couple wins this year to start off. So they can kind of trick themselves into thinking, well, if everything rounds right and we can kind of make, keep carving these wins away, we can make it go. So it's an impossibility. And they've got the cap space now with, moving Mike and whatnot. So they could do it from that standpoint too.
Jay, thank you for the $4.99. It's so sad that Tariq Woolen retired after his rookie season. Now we have this new guy named Reek. He sucks. It all went wrong there, man. It all went wrong.
It's wild to your point, Jay. It's what you don't see. I mean, how often do we have guys come in and they can light the world on fire in their first year like Reek did, and especially a guy so new to the position like he was to do that, who then goes backwards in the corresponding years after that. I mean, you just don't have a lot of baseline of that happening. And I don't have a great explanation for why it is. Is it that he kind of felt like he had made it at that point and he had put the work in and he was done and there wasn't anything? Maybe we can only look into Reek's mind to know that answer to that, but something has occurred that has caused him to regress as a player. And then it's rather than take the step forward like you'd expect, that's been the bottom line here. And we've had a couple of years of seeing it now.
Yeah, it does not happen very often that your best year is your rookie year. That it should almost be impossible for it to happen.
It really should. And again, especially he was only at that position for like 2 years coming in, having that year that he had. It's hard not to look at that and say that this is a little bit of a hunger issue. It's hard not to look at that and say it like Jay's intimating here, that it's a sort of a, you checked out issue mentally thing, or at least partially in that way. You might be still putting in the work. You might be out there working out. You might be putting yourself in the best shape, but mentally you're just not fully locked in. And the reasons for that, God only knows, but that is kind of what we are seeing on the field.
Yeah. And remember when Darius Leonard was Shaquille Leonard? No. Shaquille Leonard was Darius Leonard, and he was one of the best linebackers in the game. And then Shaquille Leonard was basically out of the league in like 2 years.
Yeah. Josh Hines Allen, I think, is the only guy that's been able to maintain his performance on changing his name.
Yeah. And he just hyphenated too. He's
hyphenated. Yeah. He got away with it. He tricked the system because he was just, going away in that way with it.
Yeah, and he was sick of people confusing him with the other Josh Allen. I get that. That makes sense. There was not going to be another guy named Tariq Woolen in the NFL that this Woolen would have gotten confused with. That's not a common name.
No, and it's a badass name, Tariq Woolen. It's got a nice phonetic, roll to it with the tongue. So go back to Tariq. You'll become the same player you once were.
Right. Gut wrenched. Thank you for the $5. Let's see if Reek is any good as a returner. I know Horton has been pretty good so far, but maybe we should attempt to recoup Reek's value just a little bit. We finally got something good at that punt returner position. I'm not trying to rock the boat.
Nor am I. We finally got a good one. It took us a while to get here on that. I'm gonna stay fat and happy with that guy and call it a day. But I like where your head's at.
Yeah, again, I think Horton had another punt return in this game where he didn't really get anything, but he was able to catch the ball on the move in traffic, and he's very comfortable doing it, and that is so valuable. I am so appreciative of the fact that he can do that because we haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, you could just feel it, and you could with him in training camp that he's just so comfortable with what he's doing, and by the way, he is top 5. Obviously, having the 95-yard return soups up your stats as far as your punt returns go, but he is top 5 in punt return yardage right now in the NFL. Is Torrey Horton. So done a hell of a job so far, and he's comfortable catching it, but he also can be dynamic after the catch with it, and that just adds value to a special teams unit that's already playing like kind of the best special teams unit in all of football. So it's a part that we saw, and look, it's a part I'm seeing in games at times. I watch the Niners play. I watch, this Tampa Bay team. I believe they had the block punt this last week against the Eagles early in that game. Part of how they got behind in that game.
I think
special teams is huge. Yeah, couple. So people forget about special teams, and I think people probably out there will roll their eyes when I bring this up. Brendan, is this real vibrant, important part of this team? Truly, the third element of this team, not just you got 1, 2, and oh yeah, we'll do what we can do on that. But you've really tried to make that a strength, and what that can do when all this works together, where when everybody's doing well, not dominant, but everybody on all 3 sides are doing really well, you have a lot of room for error in some of these games. You're getting out in front of teams. You're starting to outpace them. You're not in this even Steven through the whole game kind of thing, because so few teams can so thoroughly put those 3 parts all together at once. They'll have 2 things going, but then they got this third thing that can sometimes be a weakness, or it's just barely kind of holding in there. It's kind of that sort of mix a bit that you tend to see across the league.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the DVOA rankings, but I would guess that the Seahawks special teams unit is probably top 5 in the NFL. There have been a lot of bad special teams plays so far this year, and other than 1 blocked field goal and 1 missed field goal, the Seahawks have been very good.
I agree. I'm not sure I think I want to say they were like 5th, 7th, 15th, 2nd on special teams.
By DVOA?
That was 2 weeks ago. Actually, that was 2 weeks ago. So sorry.
What's happened since 2 weeks ago? We had the Saints game where the special teams completely took over, and
yeah, it's got to be number 1. I know we're the number 1 DVOA team right now. We're number 1 overall as DVOA, but we've got to be. You're right. Yeah. You've got to be.
And in this house, we have nothing but love and respect for DVOA. By the way, this is a pro DVOA household that I live in.
Well, I mean, look, your Legion of Boom teams were the only defense in for 4 or 5 straight years that led defensive DVOA. And that was like an all-time team. That's the point of that statistic, is to point you towards Ultimately, what is your team when it's all distilled down? When you take all the advanced stuff and you shoot it all through the wash, what is your team? This should represent that to a degree. And I think it does. I think DVOA has proven to be that.
Mm-hmm. Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $1.99. Also, is the round table tonight, Brando?
It is. So we got 6 o'clock tonight is the round table. I'll be doing a 3 o'clock behind enemy lines. So we got a loaded schedule for y'all today. Hope you're ready.
Wow. Okay. All right. I guess I can't keep you too long then. I guess we got to move on.
Oh, it's okay. It's a 3, so it's okay. I've gave myself that buffer hour in between to catch my breath.
Play action. Thank you for the $1.99. Time frame on a Woolen trade. I don't think it would be for a little while. I think that John would want to massage it to try to get more value, but who knows?
I think this will be a little while too, maybe even up to the deadline, unless John gets the item. Like if a team came in and gave a 4th round pick for Woolen right now, I think the trade's done. I think though that he's not getting that asset in return. So here's some time for Woolen to maybe rebuild a little bit of his value up. / the other part of this is that you have a contender that loses a cornerback and they suddenly become desperate. And you wait for that moment, and corners can be in high regard as far as even if you don't have a guy that's necessarily, amazing, if he's got good value and teams get desperate out there at a position like that, you can go and see that trade be made. It doesn't have to be just necessarily this like, well, we'll send him to Raiders and Carroll will love him. And it's like only one team you can move him to. So there's some benefit to waiting on this. And even still that I think the team's perfectly comfortable just hanging on to him. If that's the case, they don't get the trade back. So you're not really impelled, I think, on to move on this with a sense of urgency play action. I think instead you're probably just letting it play out until you get your offer. And if not, you just maybe stand pat.
Yeah. I don't think there's any urgency here. I think this is just a guy we've already decided we're not going to pay. And I think we're probably correct to not pay him. So why not get an asset while you can?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But it has to be a real asset, not a stupid 7th round pick asset where it's just kind of like I don't even know what you would call that. That's just like, get out of here. You're toxic. We think you're a net negative. I don't believe Woolen's a net negative yet.
I don't think he's a net negative. I think the only way I would do that is if it's the salary offsuit. So, you go on and take on a Trey Hendrickson, let's say, because in part you're clearing $4 million in cap space off Woolen's deal. And that sets the stage for you to pull this secondary point of a trade off. That'd be the only way that I would be okay with kind of taking that almost nothing burger for him back in return, is if it means there's a secondary move that's coming.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. The Hendrickson thing, I feel like our pass rush is good enough to where we don't really need to add a Hendrickson. I feel like if you're doing that, you almost need to bundle one of your edge rushers into the trade to make that make sense. So I don't know about that, but generally speaking, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think you can get more off the edge from where I stand on this. I think right now it's nice to see Nwosu come back, and maybe he can be that guy that's the guy that can provide that shot in the arm. I don't know if DeMarcus Lawrence has given you a lot as a pass rusher, and I think Derek Hall and Boye Mafe have kind of remained where they're at. I'm okay if one of the two of them, or if a Mafe means it, you got to maybe include him on a Hendrickson thing to make that happen. Hey, all the more better. It's less draft capital you have to give back in return at that point. And let's face it, if you're making a trade for Hendrickson, you probably don't need 5 edges. There's not going to be enough snaps at that point for everybody. But I'm okay with that. I am a little bit in a spot too with this, Brendan, where I look at it and I go, trade deadline, you're not likely to get a Jackson Powers Johnson available on the market. If you did, we'd both jump on it. If there's some great lineman on there, we'd both jump on it with 2 feet. But you do start to look down at it and you go, what is really available, and what can we really look for to improve? Is there an outside corner out there that's locked down you're going to be able to get to improve past what you got? No. Safeties you're fine with. Defensive tackles, you're pretty good. Maybe a nose tackle if you can find that. Offensive line wise, not gonna find anything there. You're good receiver, you're good running back, you're good tight end. So some of this comes down to there's just only so many positions to even be able to address here to upgrade. And that's a little bit of what would drive me maybe to doing that with the Trey Hendrickson, is that ultimately you are making your team better and you're putting yourself in a better position. You're not giving up a lot of assets to do so at that point, because he is kind of on that 1-year rental spot. And you have some assets I think you get back the Bengals that they might like in return.
Yeah, it's definitely an idea. I would say that adding an edge rusher is one of the best things we could do at the deadline. I think that is something where you could actually get a good player for a reasonable cost. Usually these guys who are available on the trade deadline, they're available for a reason. But with the edge rushers, I feel like this year it's going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. And that's looking for an edge rusher that'd be an upgrade over what you got. That'd be the key to me with it. And there isn't maybe a lot of those guys will be available, but if there is one that jumps out, then go for it.
Rodney, thank you for the $1.99. Is it me or can our pass rush be better? Now, all the numbers I've seen indicate their process is good. They haven't seen the big results yet, at least on the edge. But I feel like the results are going to come if the process remains good. Like Hall and Mafe are both doing a very good job with their pass rush win rate. It just hasn't turned into sacks yet. I feel like it will turn into sacks as the season goes on if they continue to do the right thing. And I think that they are.
Yeah, I think in general terms, you could say it can get a little bit better. You are getting doing a job overall of being one of the top teams in the NFL, generating pressure, and you're doing so on the back of being one of the most infrequently blitzing teams in the entire NFL. So I would say that there's a bit of a cost of doing business to where if your commitment is going to be as extreme as any NFL team in the business at only rushing for at the passer time and time again, you're asking those guys to go up against 5 and 6 man protections a lot. And that's going to be hard for anybody out there to generate a lot of pressure on the back of that necessarily. The upshot of this is you have so many guys dropping into coverage, into space, that you're closing down a lot of passing windows to this side of it. And you are getting the pressure generated. So it's not like you're completely not being able to at least force these quarterbacks off their spot and still get them under duress. But I think when I put those two things together, wouldn't you as well, Brendan, to say like, look, if I'm not going to blitz, I'm going to run that light of a box. I'm going to not give the quarterback a lot of stacked boxes or simulated pressures, even where we really have kind of held back from even doing that type of stuff. Probably what you're going to get is a little bit of that lack of necessarily ultimate productivity from pass rushers to that side of it. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I can see it that way. And I think the fact that we're getting such good pass rush from the interior is more important than getting it from the edge. Like the fact that we're getting what we're getting from Murphy and Big Cat so far this year, that's worth so much more than edge pressure to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it offsets it, at least for me. It gets it to be, it's good enough. And if you got these as the numbers on the quantitative side that show kind of the why, then it completely is good enough, especially for a team that is second or third in points per game as a bottom line. So, the proof is in the pudding on this one. And, they're doing a good job of being effective, ultimately at keeping offenses from scoring on the back of their approach so far. So if it's not broke, don't try to fix it.
Yeah,
it's working.
Remember, this was the first game where Nwosu was really like at his full power. Like those first 2 games he played barely a quarter of the snaps. This game, he actually played more than half. He was actually effective. Like that's a big part of this. Like Nwosu's probably still our best edge player, I think.
He's the best pass rusher. That's at least for sure. I can pretty much say that with ultimate confidence. So yeah, I agree. He's going to provide a nice shot in the arm for this edge group, and maybe just what we need. Maybe that's good enough at that point.
All right. So going back to this Tampa Bay game real quick here, because there's the offense. We talked about Tampa Bay's offense. We got to talk about their defense a little bit, though, because I remain terrified of the man in the middle there with Vita Vea. I remain terrified of what he can do to Anthony Bradford, who on some plays isn't blocking anybody. So if you're not blocking anybody, how are you going to block this guy? So what are we talking about with this Tampa Bay team? Because you can't run on them. That seems to me to be the foundation here. It's really hard to run on them. Even Philly, with their great running game and great offensive line, couldn't do it. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, I think to your point, the running the ball as a forefront and how that's been your option walking into this game is going to be a bit of a fool's gold, I think, on your approach. You got to be very careful to me on thinking that like what they've done, Brendan, so far. Seattle seems to, and I'd like to hear if you feel the same way, but I do feel a little bit like Mike McDonald's got a little bit of this overcorrection thing going on from Grubb last year, where you struggled offensively to stay committed to the running game in and game out, quarter in and quarter out. And it almost feels like Mike has just mandated over the top of Kubiak on this, that you are going to run the ball. You are going to make sure that we walk through these games at the forefront. And I'm fine with that to a degree, Brendan, but as we're now 4 games into this and you are running the ball as just about inefficiently as anybody in the entire NFL, while at the same point in time, Sam Darnold is performing really well for you as a quarterback, really efficiently, high yard per average attempt, very accurate, smart decision-making, limiting the turnovers. This is a game that I look at from their defensive side of this and I say, you got to lead with passing here. We've also seen the general trend over the 3 weeks here, in my opinion, with all of these 3 teams we played recently, where everybody is stacking the box up against this run. It's not just not winning because guys aren't laying their blocks. It's not winning because teams are putting too much congestion up front. They should open up the door wide open for you to pass the ball a little bit more. Couple of numbers to keep in mind here with this. 26th in stack box rate as far as on the not infrequently on the high side. So it's kind of they're a top 7 team right now, or is Tampa Bay, in stacking the box. So already you have teams that are doing this on preload with other teams you play, who some teams, those teams aren't stack boxers, but they're saying, we're going to stack you though, because we know how much you're going to want to run the run. Tampa Bay does this naturally. They're also the 7th highest blitz rate team. So they bring stack boxes, and then they have a lot of frequency in bringing blitzes behind those stack boxes and run blitzes at that. So you're going to have a hard time just pounding your head up against this wall if that's going to be what you're going to attempt to do from an offensive perspective once again this particular week. My answer would be for a Kubiak on this side of it would be to be more passing on first and second down. Be willing to lean a little bit more into throwing the ball where, hey, maybe this is a week where you got 35 attempts on Sam Darnold. Am I worried about the pressure? Am I worried about Bradford getting broken by Vita Vea here and there? Yeah, a little bit. But let's also remember this. No Kalijah Cansey. Hassan Reddick coming in here dinged up and nowhere near at 100%. That this is Logan Hall as another guy that you got there on that line. Greg Gaines is injured as well.
Yeah.
So you talk about like that line having no Cansey, no Gaines up the middle. And Hassan Reddick, who's really at the best of times only really a pass rusher and what he does at his best. You can get after him on the edge on the run. So what I see as the answer here is stack boxes, blitz rates. I've got a lot of quick throws in the passing offense for Sam Darnold in this game, and a lot of quick throws coming on first and second down to counter what Tampa Bay is doing on the other side of this.
I think I agree. And also remember, Jamel Dean may not play in this game. He's getting an MRI today.
And Morrison.
Morrison
Jamel's out. Jamel's out. Jamel's been out, to your point. So I don't know if he's back or not, but then Morrison's got the hamstring with the MRI on that.
Right. So Morrison's the guy who would replace Dean if Dean's out, I believe. So they are very thin back there. You've got Levante David out there, who is still a pretty good player, but that's the kind of guy who I want to attack with a tight end because he's so old and slow. I don't think he can keep up in coverage. So the recipe is kind of there for us to be able to throw the ball on this team. And I would hope that Kubiak is able to take a look at this situation and go, well, the circumstances dictate that we need to adjust our game plan a little bit here, because I really don't want to see this team trying to pound it against Vita Vea in the middle there. I think that'll lead to a lot of frustration.
Yeah, I do as well. And unfortunately, you've not run to the edges. If you've done one thing well, it's running up the middle. So you're running into a place where that's their dangerous territory defensively, and you haven't run particularly well to the edges. I think if you do run the ball, Brendan, though, that you have to try to attack the edges on this defense. 49% of the runs against Tampa Bay's team defensively go to the outside on the runs, 40% inside. So teams tend to stay away from Vita in just general tones. But I think you got to, if you're going to do, I want to go at Reddick. I want to attack that side where I've got Reddick and the backup 3 tech to that side. If I get those 2 guys on one side, I want audibles in there for Sam to be able to run to that side and attack it when he does see it. But I think the passing, you mentioned Levante David. There's a couple moments on tape last week with Philadelphia where I did feel like you could feel a little bit of maybe the lack of some of the quickness he would have been in the past, where they were able to throw it kind of over his head and he couldn't get quite the depth maybe a younger Levante David would get. And that's a place that attack. You saw last week in that Cardinal game with Arroyo, you finally started to get him as a bit of a, hey, we've got a point of emphasis with him in the game plan. We've actually got some mismatches we're going to attack with him in the game plan. And you saw that he could go out there and get the job done in those mismatches. So I would be the same way. You run the play action, you get Levante David matched up with Arroyo, let Arroyo just run away from him, let Arroyo use his size, because Levante's not the biggest guy either. It's not like he's a big old monstrous, linebacker. And the guy they got there, by the way, there's no defense or there's no team that's got one side of the ball that's got more Key and Peele names than Tampa Bay with that defense. Kalijah Cansey, Hassan Reddick, Antoine Winfield Jr., Zion McCollum, Levante David. It's just, they could do the whole sketch off of just their defense. But Servassier Dennis is the will linebacker there, one of the greatest all-time football names. And it's another guy you can go at. That's another guy that's a young player, not drafted particularly really high. He's kind of just a guy out there at linebacker for them.
Yeah, and also, by the way, if Hassan Reddick is out for this game, which is a possibility based on what Todd Bowles said, their top edge rushers Yaya Diaby. So there's another name for you.
That's exactly what I'm saying. The whole defense is just it's the Key and Peele sketch, man. It really is. But Diaby he's all right. He's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
he's not as dynamic as a Bosa. What we've had to deal with a Watt. He's not even a Cameron Jordan at his age and his career point of his career, probably. So
Right.
you should be able to hold up. And again, understanding that though they have the though they have the second highest pressure rate in the NFL due to Tampa Bay, it's a cost of doing business thing where it's really the stack boxes and the blitz rates are helping them get there. Part of the impressive stuff about McDonald's defense is he's getting that pressure rate without having to do these two things you would think would be the 1-2 punch you would need to be one of those teams at the top in that pressure rate numbers and generating quarterbacks being uncomfortable. And the price of doing business on that is if you're going to stack the boxes, what am I going to be able to do? If you're going to blitz me, what am I going to be able to do? Go to my hot route. And what is Sam's shown a really good job of doing through these first 4 weeks and back to Minnesota? When you get blitzed, he's going to go find his hot. He's going to get the ball out of his hands. Your blitz is not going to have enough time to arrive because he's going to make the read and the determination of where he needs to go and get the ball out of his hands before it gets there.
Yeah. I think that's the formula, man. I think you got it. I think we are exactly where we need to be here on this one. I think we, hopefully, our lips to Clint Kubiak's ears is what I can say.
I wouldn't mind it. If we come out of this game throwing more than we run for the first time, I'm not going to be one of those people that are going to be banging back on like, we should have stayed with more of the running. That was what working prior. No, come in this game, be a little more aggressive with the throwing. Doesn't mean you got to throw it 40, 45 times, but you just throw about 7 or 8 more attempts in this game than where you've been at, especially early on, especially on first and second downs. Because understanding as well with this, with how you tried to run this, the whole purpose of trying to run with your first and second downs like you have is to get yourself into third makeable. But we're still finding ourselves too often in the 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10s, because we're getting so many negative yards in the running game. We're getting so much of the penetration and the TFLs, and that it sort of ends up defeating the whole purpose on the front of it if that's the way that thing's going to run. Now, as well, too, we've been the number 1 blitz team under play action. And Mike was asked about that in the press conference, and I think that's another thing worth noting on just you're number 1 on an offense in teams attacking you in play action. And some of this is the condensed splits, Brendan, because some defenses will have automatic blitz goes if you go to the condensed splits in certain looks because the corners are tighter, everything's tighter, so you're thinking you have more of a chance to get in there. But you think that'd be another thing that Kubiak could maybe counter in anticipation. I have a high blitz rate team. Teams are blitzing us when we're under play action, under center, more than any other team in the NFL. What's my general counter to that? I can anticipate it. What's going to be my counter to that? And I can see it coming way down the line, right? This is one that he's going to see on game day. And you're like, oh my God, they're blitzing for the first time this year. Who could have seen that coming? Like, they're going to have to blitz. They don't have the dogs up front to get it done anyway. They're going to lean into that more than ever. You should be able to anticipate that as an offensive coordinator.
One other guy on this defense, and you did mention his name earlier, of course, but whatever jokes you want to make, Antoine Winfield Jr., he is one of the best in the game.
Amazing.
Yeah, about as good as it gets for safety. He is everything that we hoped Jamal Adams would be when we traded for him, pretty much. Maybe a little bit smaller, but same idea.
I don't know if you remember, but Antoine Winfield was one of the few early days with us. I think when we were evaluating, he was my favorite defensive back, cornerback, safeties. He was just my pure favorite defensive back coming out in the draft that he came out in. I thought the guy was going to be a star. I thought it was easy to see the lineage coming from his father. I mean, that's one of those guys you definitely pay the lineage on that one because his father was just a dog. But no surprise to me that he's been the player. He's been complete. He can do everything. He's an upgraded Buda Baker. And then it gives you great coverage, but also gives you all this sort of stuff Buda Baker can give you as far as down around the box and being a player like that. So, he's a problem. He's a problem back there, and he's an issue to deal with. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that's the other guy to be afraid of on this defense. Other than that, though, they're in dire straits right now. They are not nearly as beat up as their offense, but they are not where they want to be. Like Khalid Jacansi, kind of easy to forget about that guy, but that was a first-round pick and somebody that they were counting on this year, and he's out for the season, I think.
He's out for the season, and he's been a very good player for them. He's not only a guy they drafted in the first round. He had sort of shades of an Aaron Darnold to his game, and he's been kind of a little bit like that, slightly lesser version of a Darnold there for them. And you put that as a 1-2 punch with him and Vita Vea next to each other there up front, kind of like what we get the benefit of at times with Murphy and Leonard Williams down there when they're being super dynamic, and that's hard to deal with. Like you said earlier, the pressure up the middle is much tougher to deal with. Quarterbacks can't step up into it. They hate that stuff. And so you pull this big strength of their defense kind of now away from them, and they don't have a ton of other strengths they can lean on, like dynamic edge rushers and lockdown corners. It gets a little bit light for them, especially considering the injuries.
Right. So let's see here. Anything else we want to say about this Tampa Bay team? Anything else stand out to you?
You probably got an advantage as well on the special team side. I don't think they're bad special teams, but I think that you do have the advantage there on that side too. And hopefully you can work that in as you've worked that in through the first couple of games in addition to that to help you get you kind of over the top on this one.
Well, I did hear they're trying out new punters this week because their punter had 2 punts blocked against Philly, and they feel like his slow approach is why, I guess. So things are not great there. They're not thrilled with their special teams.
You got to have a hell of a slow windup to get to the point where that's your fault at that point. I mean, it must just be like he's got a tick or something. He's got to take the one extra step or something like that to get to that point. And how do you not see that in training camp? Like that he's a slow stepper.
Maybe he needs to hit the smelling salts like Jason Myers.
It couldn't hurt, man.
I mean, Myers made his kick after he took him, so something happened.
He did indeed. I like it.
All right, let's see here. We have Frederick McGuy. Thank you for the $5. This is a prove-it game for the Hawks. The past 2 years, they have failed their prove-it games versus Ravens and Bills, respectively. Let's see a win. I do feel like if they win this game, the feeling around the team is going to be different at that point. I will say that. I can get behind that despite Tampa being a little crippled. I still think this is the game where if you win, you start going like, okay, we might really have something here.
Yeah, Frederick, I think this is a good point and a valid one at that, in that the last couple of years in general, when you look at a Seahawks team that's won more games than they've lost, you have typically, when you have gone up against some of the upper crust, some of the teams that are truly legitimate, you have faltered and failed away. You've had a little bit over the past couple of years being able to beat up on some of the lesser foes here and there at times. And so this would be a way of starting to kind of kick this off to show this isn't that year. Last year, you were 3-1 and you got the Patriots and you got the Dolphins and you had the Broncos in week 1 with Bo Nixon, his first rookie start in Lumen. So, you had the easier schedule. Then you went to the Lions and they kind of showed you what was up. And so, yeah, I think that there is a bit of that at play here, Frederick, in learning about this team as to whether or not they're going to be able to take a step to getting into contention even just this year. And that you got to start beating some of these teams if you're going to be that team. You're not getting to the playoffs. You're not going to make noise in the playoffs if you're just trying to beat up on the lesser foes every week, even with our easier schedule as it does stand.
And even though I think that this is a prove-it game, I think I'm definitely at the point now where if we don't win, I'll be pretty disappointed because of how beat up Tampa is. So what I'm trying to say is I'm feeling like after this week, you're going to be crowning them just a little bit more than I would have thought.
I feel where you're at on that. I think considering the injuries, I'm not saying that every team isn't still dangerous with injuries, but you look at how many we've talked through and how many are mounting here with Tampa Bay. And it just, this is the way the NFL works. It becomes one too many. It becomes two too many. You have a 53-man roster and you build up that roster and you need your frontline guys to stay healthy to a degree. You can sustain some injuries, but it becomes too far. And it does feel a little bit like with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both sides of the ball, that it's becoming a little too far. I mean, the coach can't even remember the MRIs. If that's not an indicator, I don't know what is.
It's a Jenga tower, right? You can only pull out so many blocks.
That's right. Exactly. And one too many, the whole thing kind of collapses underneath it. And watching that Eagle game last week with Baker, especially that offensive line, and as it is kind of makeshift right now with no Gadecki, no Cody Mock, and Tristan Wirfs just kind of coming back under a lot of quick pressure, man, under a lot of fast. It's right in his face. And, Eagles got a good defensive line, but it's not like it's incredible right now.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, I did look this up. So Chase McLaughlin, who is the kicker for Tampa Bay, actually only 9 for 12 on the year, has missed from 30, has missed 2 from the 40s, and he's also missed an extra point, but he's also hit the 65-yarder, which is 65 the record, or is it one short of the record?
One short of the record.
Okay. So I guess he's Steph Curry, right? You want him shooting from long distance or something.
It's like we see with Jason Myers sometimes with his big leg, is that those big leg guys can have sometimes the yips get them on the shorter stuff. It can be random and a little bit wild with that on when it hits guys. But just another indicator that you've got the advantage special teams wise versus where they are. And that helps to add up in a game like this. We're already looking at it like, hey, we're healthier offensive wise. We're healthier defensive wise. We're much better special teams wise. This should, to me, add up to a win. As you said, if it isn't, it's a little bit disappointing, especially playing this thing at home. And Tampa Bay fans shouldn't exactly be like swelling up the lower bowl like the Niner fans did. So you should have your fans in the house make a noise on top of all of the rest at their maximum volume. Should add up to a win for our Hawks.
So let's go ahead and put it in ink. What do you got? Give me your score.
I've got the Tampa Bay offense struggling, just down too many bodies. Defense with Seahawks has shown that they've been so very suffocating on offenses this year. Whereas I think you're going to get things done on Sam Darnold, and he's going to throw the ball for, I think in this game, nearly 300 yards. I put us at 27-17 Seahawks in this one.
All right. I'm going to say 23-12. A little bit of an oddball score.
I like it. I like it. Now, I could certainly see that as well. I struggle with Tampa Bay and looking at what they're going to do, and they've got a couple parts in here, but it's going to be, I think, tough sledding for them the way that this is set up. I think we're well suited to be able to deal with that offense.
Yeah, and remember, we got the mini bye week, so we had extra time to get ready for this one.
And meanwhile, what did they have to go through but just a freaking battle that took them right up in the end? They had to do mount that furious comeback to try to get back in that thing. So they fought right to the last moment of that game to try to win that thing.
Right. And it was a body bag game too. So they didn't even get the win.
Nope. Paid the ultimate price and lost bodies and then still got the loss.
All right. So that is about it, I think, for the show today. We had well over 300 people for most of the show. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me as we do every week. Next week, we will be returning to our usual time, I believe, on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
And one last thing before we go, I do once again want to give a shout out to Sleeper here. You've got 2 promo codes you can use. You have SBN on my side, and you have Nest on Brandon's side. Either promo code will get you a 100% match up to $100. And tomorrow is the first day of October, so it should be opening up. So check that out. Go have some fun. And don't forget that promo code. It is a little bit of free money, which what could ever go wrong with free money?
It's win-win-win, man. A little money in your pocket, support the shows at the same time, and all is good in the world.
All right. So we got a big one coming up this weekend, people. Got a big one. Have an opportunity to really announce yourself to the rest of the league, beat a team that has been a playoff team these last several years. Tampa Bay, they're working on a nice little, 5 seasons in a row in the playoffs. That's a legitimate NFC team. They're off to a good start this year, 3-1, just like us. You win this game, people are going to start paying a little bit of attention. So go out there, get it done, handle your business, take advantage of what Tampa Bay does not have. And I think we'll be doing this show next week from a pretty rosy position. We're having a lot of good things to say and not a lot of negative things to say. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Let's go ahead and get behind the team this Sunday. But first, don't forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.